Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to another edition of the Stargirl Season 2 review series. And today I am going to be talking about Episode 9, Summer School Chapter 9, which I have just finished watching. And once again, this show continues to keep getting better and better. And this episode saw the appearance of not only the Justice Society, but we also saw John Wesley's ship return in the role of Jay Garrick, aka The Flash. Now, most of the first half of this episode involving Jay Garrick was set in flashback, so we didn't actually get to see Jay Garrick in the present teaming up with Stargirl. Little bit bummed out about that, but the flashbacks with Jay Garrick and the original Hourman and Starman and Wildcats was very, very good. So that made up for it. But at the same time, I would have liked to have seen Jay Garrick in the present teaming up with the new JSA and maybe give some advice and maybe mentor some of the other younger members. But still, this was a great episode. And we learn in these flashbacks, we learn that the original JSA had to work together to try and take down Eclipso. So this isn't the first time Eclipso has mixed it up with JSA members. He actually encountered the original JSA many years before. So it was kind of interesting to see how they dealt with Eclipso in the old days of the original JSA. So this was, as I mentioned, a really good episode and a fantastic follow up to episode 8. So, with that all said, let's get straight into it. Let's talk about episode 9, Summer School, chapter 9. So, this episode opens up with a prologue that says decades ago, where we see a thunderstorm begins outside a house while inside an old record player plays, and we see Bruce Gordon standing in his study drinking, telling Eclipso, who is in the diamond, that he wishes he would never have brought him back from that island. Bruce is regretting having used Eclipso to gain him fame and fortune, as the cost has been so high. We then see Eclipso taunts him, tells him to put the diamond down if he really wants to be free of him, and Bruce goes for a gun, presumably to kill himself, and Eclipso tells him that he can make things better, including getting the woman that he loves back. Eclipso convinces Bruce that the only thing keeping his love Mona from him is another man. All Bruce has to do is let Eclipso take control, and we then see in a very horrific scene, Eclipso starts to take over Bruce's body. One thing I've liked about these episodes with Eclipso, they're very horror based. As I said, DC have never been afraid of embracing horror aspects, and they did this once again. So to see him taking over Bruce's body was quite scary, but at the same time, this sets the tone for what was to come. In present day Blue Valley, the weather continues to worsen as the storm rolls in. Everyone at the American Dream is sent home, and we see Pat and Mike put together a box of storm supplies so they can get it downstairs in the basement. Courtney tells Pat that Rick's hearing was cancelled and that with Eclipso getting stronger, she and Beth are no longer waiting to go after him. Pat tells her that they are not prepared, and Pat sees a yellow rose on the table and is taken back to a memory of the past. We then see a flashback is of a funeral, specifically for Rebecca McNider. After the service, we see the JSA come together to talk about dealing with Eclipso, and then we see Jay Garrick show up to talk about while at the graveside. Dr. McNider's wife has a breakdown, and then we cut back to the present where Pat turns around to find a coffin in the dining room with lots of yellow roses. The coffin opens and Pat closes his eyes, trying to banish the hallucination, although he can hear someone say liar in the distance. Upstairs, Mike overhears Courtney planning with Beth on how they will deal with Eclipso. He takes sleeping bags down to the kitchen as things get colder and can't find Pat. Pat has gone down to the basement to bandage the small wound he got from the yellow rose, while the staff goes behind him. We then flash back to the past yet again, and we see Pat talks to Sylvester and says he wants to get justice for Dr. McNider. Pat wants to be part of the team to help with that. They soon find the Shade watching them. Sylvester dismisses Pat back to the garage and goes to talk to him. Pat tries to follow, but they are both gone. Driving home, Barbara's car dies as the storm intensifies. Pat starts looking through the old JSA files, looking at photos of himself and Starman. And then we see, in memory, Pat works on his car in the garage when Sylvester shows up, a bit shaken. Vache told him that Eclipso is a spiritual parasite, an otherworldly creature that Bruce Gordon had found and been possessed by. Sylvester explains what Eclipso can do, and that the Shade told him that they could stop it. It seems the Shade is actually afraid of Eclipso and called it a real evil. The only way to stop Eclipso, it turns out, is to kill the host. When the host dies, Eclipso is forced back into the Black Diamond as long as it remains untouched. Eclipso is powerless. Pat doesn't agree with killing because that's the JSA code, and Sylvester appears to agree, but there is always another way. We then see upstairs Mike is getting colder, even though the temperature of the house is fine. There's a knock at the door, and he goes to answer it, and he finds Cameron McKent. Cameron says he was caught in the storm and didn't know where else to go. He asks where Courtney is, and then where Barbara is. Barbara is still stuck in her car, unable to get out of the car or get it started. She also has no self-service, and suddenly Jordan McKent appears in her back seat, and the car starts to freeze over. Now, obviously, Dr. Icicle was killed off in season 1 by the JSA, but it looks like he returned in hallucination form due to Eclipso. So this was very chilling, no pun intended. As for House, Cameron talks Mike about his real mother abandoning him and says that he knows that Mike kills Jordan and tells him that Jordan isn't dead. He's with Barbara right now. Cameron exhibits his own ice powers by killing the family dog. In the car, Barbara tries to convince herself that what she's seeing isn't real and that it's all Eclipso, as Jordan tells her he's going to hurt her for hurting him. In the car, the Shade tells Barbara that nothing she's seeing is real and that her car is fine. He tells her to start the car, and when she does, the hallucination clears. He also tells her to go home, and Barbara drives off very quickly. As for House, Mike fights with Cameron, who tells him he's nothing, unwanted by the JSA and his own mother. Courtney comes down and realizes that Mike is stuck in a hallucination. She has him touch the staff, which somehow breaks him out of things, and the dog is fine. Very good stuff here. In the basement, Pat picks up Starman's uniform and discovers that he's bleeding. He goes to wash his hands and Eclipso as Bruce Gordon is right behind him. The blood doesn't seem to want to wash off, and we're back in the past yes again, where we see Starman, Wildcat, Jay Garrick Flash, and Hourman all come down to the garage. They need him as a possible tie-breaking vote. Eclipso has ravaged the JSA. Freelancer, the Spectre. Nice to see we got the Spectre reference. Dr. Fate and the Hawks were all unable to stop Eclipso, and he beat them all before vowing to come after the rest of them and their families too. Killing the host appears to be their only option. Pat doesn't want to kill anyone, and neither does the Flash, but Wildcat wants to do it. He votes yes, as does Hourman. We then see Pat votes no, along with the Flash. The vote comes down to Sylvester, who surprised Pat by voting yes to kill Eclipso. Jay Garrick tells him that he will not take part in this, and Sylvester tells him he won't have to. Pat says he won't participate either, but Sylvester won't let him sit it out either. We then see in the present Pat hears Bruce and turns around as he fires a gun at him. Owlman, Starman, and Wildcat show up behind Bruce as he goes to shoot Pat, but Courtney shows up with the staff just in time. Pat confesses to Courtney how the JSA really stopped Eclipso, and then we're treated to yet another flashback. We're back at Bruce Gordon's house from the opening. Pat sits in the car outside, and Starman gets in shaken but holding a box. Starman has a bit of blood on his uniform but tells Pat he's right. The JSA should never take a life, but it's too late for that now. Starman has the Black Diamond in a box and tells him they need to get it to storage. He doesn't want to talk about what's happened. Pat tells Courtney that the team drifted away after that and only came back together when the ISA showed up. The team was never the same again, and Pat says that it was the killing of Bruce Gordon that broke the JSA up and led to their defeat and demise at the hands of the ISA. Courtney calls Pat out for lying to her, even as her own friends were being destroyed by Eclipso. Pat also reveals that Barbara knows about it all, so Courtney feels doubly betrayed and confronts Barbara when she comes home, causing a massive rift in the family. Outside, we see a young Bruce watching and laughing as all of this takes place. And that wraps up episode 9. Excellent episode. Really enjoyed this one a lot. The highlights of this episode, of course, was seeing the JSA, John Wesley's ship, although it only had a small role in this episode and it was only featured in flashback. Still great to see him looking tremendous as always. It was a real treat seeing all this. And it's pretty cool seeing Eclipso still causing chaos from behind the scenes, playing out everyone's worst fears, creating all of these hallucinations. I think Eclipso could very well be one of the best villains for Stargirl so far. I mean, he's really scary, but this was still an amazing episode. And to hear the real reason why the JSA disbanded was interesting. Very interesting reason. Killing Bruce Gordon, which led to the team breaking up, was very powerful stuff. So I enjoyed this one a lot. So, as I said, I would probably say episode 6, 7, 8, and now 9 have been my all time favourite episodes of season 2. I've enjoyed the rest of them, but that 4 in particular have just been absolute top notch, and the show just continues to keep getting better and better. So that's going to be it from me. I am going to wrap this up now. What's your thoughts on episode 9? Did you enjoy it? What was your thoughts on the flashbacks involving the JSA? And also, how do you feel about the JSA breaking up due to Bruce Gordon getting killed off? Do you think that's a valid reason for the team to break up? And also, what's your thoughts on Eclipso playing out everybody's worst fears? Do you think he could very well be the best and most dangerous villain DC show has ever come across in a long time? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Stargirl Season 2 review series, where I am going to be talking about episode 10, which I am very much looking forward to talking about, and I can't wait to see it. So until next time, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, thanks for listening.